Welcome to the OBM podcast. This is a platform where awareness, new perspectives, healing, and transparent conversations take place. Every mom has a motherhood journey that is unique, yet no mom is alone. So sit back, relax, open your minds, and steady your hearts to hear a mom's journey through motherhood.
Hey, sister friends, welcome to the OBM podcast. Today you have your host, Shanika, but you have an amazing guest, Jenna. Jenna is going to tell us a little bit about herself first before she shares her motherhood journey. So we are really excited to hear from her. So sit back and let's get ready. So, Jenna.
Yes. Hey, guys.
Can you kind of share who you are? Outside of being a mom, can you share who Jenna is?
Yes. Well, I took a couple years off of work to be a mom. So that is my life right now. But I am going back to teaching elementary in August, which I'm really excited about. You know, it's been a blessing to stay home with my son while I can, but everyone knows, time to go back. So, but I mean, I do. I love being a mom and I love teaching. I'm really close with my family. We all really close. You know, they've stood by my side. I've gone through some life-changing things. So, but yeah.
Awesome. I really like that you said like you and your family are close. Can you kind of share like how many siblings do you have?
Yes. So I'm the oldest. I have 3 sisters. We are all super, super close. We don't fight like we used to. Growing up, we'd fight all the time over boys, over clothes. There was always something growing up with 3 sisters. You know, can you imagine? We're all like the same size, everything. So, but we're really close now. I don't know where I would be without them. The constant support that we have. I mean, it's like built-in best friends, you know? Who doesn't want to grow up with that?
Yeah, for sure. You give me a little hope here. When you say you said like,
oh yeah,
you guys fought when you were younger.
We would all the time, like bad. Like we were constantly like,
wow,
physical fights too. Like
what?
Oh yeah.
You guys are so close. Like I've seen some of the pictures you guys post. I'm just like, you talk about them all the time. That is so awesome.
It's funny because I mean, we were always close growing up, but definitely when you get older, it's a different level of like appreciation for each other.
Yeah. That's true.
Yeah. When we were younger, it was just like, full blown fights all the time.
The little catty girl stuff. I know.
Oh yeah.
I know. So you have siblings and you guys are really close. What are some things that you like doing for fun?
Well, I do love going to the beach. I take that for granted a lot. Honestly, I love going to the movies, going shopping, that kind of stuff. Took time off of the movies and all that kind of stuff when COVID, but now that things are sort of getting back to normal, it's been nice to enjoy, all of that.
Good.
Fun. So
well, that's exciting. That's exciting to get to know just a little snippet of who Jenna is. Okay, so you shared about who you are. Now let's get into the nitty gritty of the OBM podcast, talking about you as a mom. So if you could share with us, how is the journey going? Because you're a first-time mom. And so how is your journey going thus far? How did it start? Like you can start wherever you want to, and I'll intercept wherever you want to.
Well, I mean, you want me to kind of start with my birth story type thing and then
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, let's go there.
Yeah. I mean, I love being a mom. Like it was a rough beginning. We had a rough beginning together. But I love being a mom. I think my favorite thing about being a mom is the unconditional love that I have for him and that he has for me. And it's like every day is kind of a second chance, which is great because I think as moms we put a lot of guilt. We have guilt and
mom guilt, yeah,
kind of stuff. but I mean, it's an opportunity to shape a heart and shape a mind.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, we had a rough beginning into my little one and I. So yeah, I can't get into that. So I always knew I was carrying a big baby. I always knew that. And every time I would go into my OB appointment, I'd be like, "Hey, you guys, like, isn't he like a big baby?" Like, they're like, "Oh, it's fine. You're tall." Like, that doesn't have anything to do with it, but that's what they would tell me, right? It's fine. So anyway, like 40 weeks, his due date came, and I was like, okay, but I wasn't showing any signs that he was ready. I wasn't
Mhm.
dilating, none of that. And I told my doctor, I was like, all right, it's time. I'm really feeling like it's time. He's a big baby. I'm ready. Like, he wanted me to go to 41 weeks, and I was like, I can't. No, like, he's big. Like, it's time. So anyway, I checked in the hospital, get induced, and they started me on, I think it was Cytotec, like an oral medication to start the process.
Mhm.
I was on that for like a day. That wasn't doing anything. So then they started me on, I think it's called Cervidil,
Mhm.
kind of get things started, and that didn't work. So then they put me on the IV Pitocin,
Mhm.
and that a couple hours after that, I was like feeling the contractions. I was like, all right. So I think this is a tip. Ask for the epidural before you're gonna need it, because I think it took them 45 minutes to come in.
Yeah.
'Cause I
Yeah,
was
for
up
sure.
at 2.
For
So
sure.
anyway, I think it was 5 centimeters when I got it.
Mm.
So at that point, I pushed. They had people coming in, me trying different positions. I pushed as hard as I could for like 3 hours, right? And he kept getting stuck on my pelvic bone. And so the doctor at that point was like, okay, his heart rate's going down. It's time, emergency C-section. I was like,
Mhm.
okay. And it's a weird feeling because you're like, okay, this is not how I planned this. But you got to roll with it. I was like, yep, get this baby out. So we got into the operating room, and I'm like, okay, I'm just going to like fall asleep, relax, we're good. But that was like not the case. So I guess I really don't know. They messed up on a couple things. I don't really know exactly how they messed this up, but I guess they didn't give me enough medicine for the epidural.
Oh.
Uh, and this is it was traumatic. I mean, I I felt them cut me, and so my son's dad
Mm.
was in the room, and I mean, he told me I must have woke up fighting them during the procedure like 7 times.
Mm-mm.
And um, I vaguely remember the few times I remember waking up, um, them just yelling, like, give her more medicine, And so anyway, they had me open for a while because I had pushed for so long and he was like down in the birth canal. They had me open for a while. They finally were able to get him out, and he wasn't breathing when he was born. He was blue. They got him breathing and had to take him straight up to the NICU because I guess he had swallowed a lot of fluid and other stuff from the trauma. And actually, what I didn't realize at the time before the C-section was when I was pushing and for so long, my uterus had actually ruptured, which is super dangerous for the baby and I.
Mm.
So that's part of why he was so messed up too. So he ended up being in the NICU for about 5 days. His his stomach was so messed up, so he wouldn't keep anything down. So he was on oxygen for a few days, got off that, and then he was on IV sugar water because they couldn't find a formula that he would keep down. So anyway, that happened. But so when I finally came to after the C-section.
Mm-hmm.
I remember waking up and I was like, to the nurse, I was like, well, where's my baby? Because I didn't know like what had happened. And she's like, well, you guys are going to be okay, but you guys have been through a lot. She's like, you lost about double the amount of blood as a normal C-section is what she told me. And then I was like, okay, well, when can I see him? When can I see him? And she's like, well, not tonight. Like, we'll try tomorrow. And I was like, okay. I think that was the toughest part is like, okay, I couldn't be with him or see him. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So the next day came and I think it was a new nurse. And I was like, okay, when can I see him? And she's like, you're too weak to be well down there. And I was like, okay. And this is another thing is I wish I would have known to advocate for myself more in the hospital because I didn't know. I just did what I was told, you know? And so anyway, she's like, you're too weak. So that was really tough. I think it was the third day that I was finally able to go down and be wheeled down there to meet him.
Mm-hmm.
So it was tough. Anyway, I think it was after that they sent me home. He was still in the NICU. And I think it was that same night that they sent me home. I had some swelling and stuff, which is normal, but then my heart rate was very elevated and I couldn't get it down. I laid down, I couldn't get it down. It was just high. So I was like, all right, something's wrong. I need to go back. So went back to the ER and they checked my hemoglobin and they were like, it's super low. And it's just like, they didn't bother checking that before they sent me home. I don't know. So anyway, my hemoglobin was super low. So they kept me for a few days. They gave me 2 blood transfusions and an IV antibiotics. So I was on that for a couple of days. It was hard because I think when I was there in the ER for the first time, like my son was able to come home, but I was back in the hospital, you know what I mean? And
yeah.
And this was back when COVID was in full force, you know, so there was a lot of, you know, rules and stuff. And so, you know, they weren't going to bring a newborn into the hospital so I could see him. So I couldn't see him. And then anyway, it was tough too, because I never got that skin to skin with him. So I never got that like immediate bonding time with him. And I think that would have helped my milk come in too, that skin to skin that I wasn't able to get with him.
Right.
Yeah, I remember I set my alarm for every 3 hours in the hospital to try to pump. I was trying to pump while I was getting a blood transfusion. It was rough.
Wow, girl.
Yeah, it was rough. So anyway, a few days after that, they sent me home. And I think it was literally the next day, my mom came over to help me with, you know, my newborn. Thank goodness for her. I think it was the next day, like I looked at my mom and she's like, something's wrong, isn't it? I was like, something's wrong. I was like, I think it was like 10 minutes after I told her that, I started hemorrhaging. So went back to the ER. And they checked my blood. They're like, your white blood cell count is up. We don't know why. So then they're like, we're gonna give you an ultrasound of your uterus. They did that. They came back and they were like, so it's showing that you have some retained products. And I was like,
what?
Okay, retained products? Like what? Like, what are you telling me? And so I was talking, this is the ER doctor that I was talking about. It wasn't the doctor that delivered my son, you know? So of course he didn't help the situation. I was like, what? Like retained products, what? Like, well, maybe they left a sponge in from the procedure. I said, y'all better hope not. You know, like I was so freaked out. So then they're like, okay, well, what we're going to do is we're going to keep you a couple days. And then on Monday, we're going to try a DNC to get whatever it is in there out. And I was like, okay. But I mean, I was so angry because I was like, what did you guys do to me? You know what I mean? And So anyway, I think it was the following day, one of the doctors came in and she's like, so your uterus is still really swollen, but we don't want to take you back to the operating room right now. Like that's going to be a last resort. So what we're going to do is they put me on medication, some type of medication that's supposed to help flush out your uterus, what was in there. So they kept me in the hospital for a couple more days on that just to monitor me. And then they gave me another ultrasound and everything was looking better on the second one. So whatever that medicine helped, I guess, you know? Yeah, but it was, I think that then I finally went home. It was tough because I mean, at this point, by the time I finally got back from the second ER trip, it had been must have been like 10 days that I really didn't even, I wasn't with my newborn. You know what I mean? That, I mean, mentally it was like physically I was going through a lot.
I bet.
Mentally it was honestly even tougher, you know? So
I want you to continue, but can you share those, you said two things, and for those individual moms who are looking to be moms,
yes,
can
I
you
don't
share
like
what you're not scary. I think you're bringing awareness.
Yeah.
So, well, at least we don't want it to be scary. We just want to make it aware, because not everybody's story is fairy tales and
yes, and
you know?
that's a tough thing to swallow,
right?
Because you have all these, you know, I mean, I know I did. I had everything planned out. You have all these ideas in your head. Okay, like I want to do this right as soon as he comes out. I want this to happen. I want it to look like this. I want him to wear this, you know, and then that's tough letting go of that and just going with the flow. It's really tough.
I feel you. I feel you on that, like for sure. Can you explain the DNC and what does it mean for your uterus to rupture?
You know, so DNC is it's a procedure. It's actually, I think, one of the abortion procedures now that they call, but it's basically what it is it's one of those, I don't completely know how it works. But they basically sweep out your uterus, anything that's left in there. But I mean, it's a very invasive procedure because they get in your uterus and they just scrape it out, from what I'm told. You know, and I had so much anxiety about that after my uterus had already been through so much, you know?
Yeah.
But I think that's basically what it is. They scrape anything left in there out.
Where you sleep? Like, do they give you any?
You know, to be honest, I literally do not know. Yeah, I was angry, but I was like, whatever you guys need to do to get me back home with my son, like, please do it because I'm over this.
Yeah.
You know?
So what does it mean when your uterus ruptured?
You know, to be honest, I'm not even completely sure what that means. That's what I was told. I think it's because when you have a C-section, they cut open your uterus, but if it ruptures prematurely, it's super, super dangerous for the baby and the mom because the mom can bleed out, I believe.
Yes.
And then the baby basically is exposed to a lot of things he shouldn't be exposed to, you know, before he's born. And that's, I think, part of the reason why Dawson ended up in the NICU is because he inhaled so much stuff from everything.
So your uterus ruptured in one place and they cut you in another.
Yes. Yeah. So my uterus ruptured when I pushed for 3 hours. I mean, I'm told now pushing for 3 hours is way too long. You should not be pushing as hard as you could for 3 hours. That should not.
As hard as you could.
Girl, as hard as I could. And my poor baby, I mean, he had, I think it was called 2 huge hematomas on his head for probably his first month of life from being like pressed up against my pelvic bone, you know, like poor thing. But yeah, 3 hours I shouldn't have gone that long. Like he wanted me to go to 41 weeks. I'm like, well, what would have happened if I went that far? You know what I mean? I knew he was a big boy. And that's the thing too. It's like, everyone's like, well, you're tall, you can handle it. But it's not how tall you are. Like, it's how wide your hips are.
Mm.
You know what I mean?
Those childbearing hips is what they.
Yeah.
I want to look in. I really want to look into that and be like, is that real? Like, is that real? But
Well, what's crazy is I think they used to like measure the baby and then measure your pelvic bone to make sure the baby would fit. And I think they don't do that anymore. I think this is what I'm told. It's rare, but it is possible for you to create a baby too big for you to birth. And that is why a lot of women back in the day used to die in childbirth. I know it still happens today, but like more so is because that's one of the reasons at least. You know, so
yeah,
it's scary stuff.
yeah, and it is scary, and and like you said, it definitely still happens today, and
Yes.
it's really sad. And I know we've had this conversation before, so I know that you're comfortable talking about it. It's just it's so sad that it's one ethnicity more than the other.
More so, yeah.
It's more Black women that are dying during childbirth than Caucasian women or any other. It's just very sad.
Yeah.
It's very sad. And I know we were talking, it was like, they need to figure it out. They need to
figure out why.
Yeah. It's ridiculous how one race is treated differently, but that's all around the world though, and it's sad. We're going to try not to divert there. Though we know the truth, but we're going to try not to go there, at least in this. I want you to really share the rest of your story. So I think you were continuing with, you finally were sent home, I think.
Yes.
After the second, is this the first time or the second time?
That was the second time I was finally sent home. Like I said, I think by that time I had been in a hospital for like 10 days at least. Of course, and that's, like I said, without my baby. Like I didn't have my baby with me. You know what I mean? I'm like, and that's the thing about the ER too, is they don't let someone stay with you at night. I mean, I had my mom visit me during the day and like bring me food and stuff, but you're sitting in there alone at night, and it's like, I'm just like praying, my newborn baby is, well taken care of.
Yeah.
I'm, by myself over here.
That's traumatic, Jenna. That really is.
Yes. Well, like I said, mentally it was tougher than physically.
Yeah.
What I was going through.
Yeah.
So
yeah. How do you, so then you were finally reunited with Dawson, correct?
Yes.
How do you feel like with the separation, how did you mentally get through that?
I mean, God was the only way, really, like just reading and praying, and I did have the encouragement of my family and friends, praying for me, sending me verses. That's really the only way. Cause if I started thinking about my circumstances, it was too much. You know what I mean? I had to, focus on the good and focus on the fact that, okay, like Dawson and I, we're going to get through this. We're going to be okay. And that's the most important thing.
Yeah.
At least, I was hoping we'd be okay. Of course, at the moment I was like, what is wrong with me?
Yeah. It's like holding on to that hope. Holding on to that hope for sure.
Yes.
Oh goodness. Yeah. You're, as being a first time mom, to just deal with that, it just sounds
it's crazy. Like a lot of people had heard my story and they were like, girl, you having another one after that? I was like, at first, to be honest, I was like, no, it's too much. And then of course, I love him so much. I'm like, yeah, I need another one.
Yeah.
At some point.
Yeah. I feel like, do you feel like there are some, like, what are some changes you feel like you would make now that you are more aware? What are some things that you would go forth with?
Well, I mean, like I said, in the hospital is advocating for yourself, knowing your rights. I know a lot of stuff was going on, but like, I should have been able to, I don't know, somehow get down there and get skin to skin with him and practice breastfeeding with him more. You know what I mean? And like I said before too, is just giving up that idea of a picture perfect experience, because then you're going to be disappointed when it doesn't go your way.
That's good, Jenna.
And that's tough, because especially as a first-time mom. I think second-time moms know that, like, okay, I sort of know this could happen, like wrong. But first-time moms it's a little bit like you don't know, and you're like, okay, it's gonna go. No, it's not, probably.
Yeah, no, I get it. Like, even as a fourth time mom, it's just like, it's still challenging to accept the way that, baby number 4 came. Cause you have this thought, you're like, I want to do this and we're gonna do this. And then it's like, nah, bruh.
Yeah, no, it's
not gonna happen. So it's accepting that is the first hard task. It's eye-opening. The perspective is definitely new. So we thank you. I thank you for sharing your story. If there's any last minute encouraging words that you could give to anybody out there, any woman, any person that desires to be a mom, what would you share?
I would say, honestly, it's all worth it. All the traumatic, all the pain, all the suffering, everyone has a different journey. But it's all worth it in the end when you have your baby. Mm-hmm. It really is. It's all worth it. And everyone has a different experience. So, don't go in with anxiety. Like, the end result when you are cuddling with your baby, it's all worth it.
Yeah. And I want to add on to that. It's all worth it. And at the same time, we can still do the best we can to bring preventative measures, i.e. get a doula, a midwife, educate ourselves really well, go to a birthing class, really have a good relationship as best as we can with our OB. We can just doing those things to help prevent certain things, have a birth plan. Those things are really, really helpful, but also just understanding that it might not fit into the box. Might not. But we trust God and believe that all will be well. It will be well, because God knows it all, and God is perfect in all of his ways.
He's in control.
Yeah, for sure. So Jenna, again, thanks.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of the OBM podcast. We look forward to you joining us next week to hear a story from a mom near you. So until we hear each other again, please be sure to take it easy, be blessed, and smile. Remember, you can enjoy life.